Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Nowotnik, would you call the roll?
Okay. Commissioner French?
Here.
Commissioner Pilla? Absent. Commissioner Feinstein?
Here.
Commissioner Salanitro? Absent. Commissioner Sach?
Here.
And Commissioner Carvin.
Here. Okay. Comments from the public? I'm wondering if we shouldn't go straight to the operating budget. If the public would be accommodating, I think we should. Let's start talking about that, and then we'll get. I think they may want to hear about the budget. So let's go straight to the operating budget. And I know Paula and the citizens at Rye Finance Committee have done a lot of work. Maybe you want to. Do you want to? Is there a way to have, maybe if you want to participate as well and I know you spent a lot of hard work on this.
No, Bishop's going to present it, and I can sit up.
Yep, great, and get your,
Okay.
fantastic.
Yeah, well, if you don't mind.
Please, absolutely.
We have a budget committee here on the commission made up of Mayor Pilla and myself, and we asked that we also have it comprised of the Rye Citizens Finance Committee, which reviews the Rye City budget, as well as Rye Town staff. And so coming out of the last meeting where there were still some questions on the assumptions, we had an initial meeting right away, and then really it just got down to the Citizens Finance Committee members, which was David Blank, Steve Myers, who was chair of the Rye Recreation Commission for about 15 years, and Paula Schaefer, meet with Bishop and staff to go through the assumptions. And so, welcome.
Thank you.
Great, so Bishop, you want to present the broad parameters?
Yeah, we're just warming up the lights, as they say.
Okay.
Before we get started, certainly I think Commissioner French echoes my thoughts. We worked very hard. The Citizens Finance Committee from Rye was extremely helpful, and a large part of what you see here is the culmination of those various meetings. What I wanted to do was I wanted to just set the stage very quickly with what we have here and call your attention to the graph that's up there now. One of the things that I think is lost in some of the discussion is the fact that we actually haven't been doing too badly. This is a 15-year chart, goes back to 1994. You can see that revenue has trailed expenses.
Yeah, actually, sorry.
Consistently throughout the period. But really what I want to call your attention to is the line down below, which is the actual deficiency line. And you'll see, for the people that can't see it, that line is identified as $200,000. And you can see that in 2007, the last year of the prior administration, we were over $400,000 in losses. And then we took over, and we have steadily brought the deficiency down. Just wanted to point that out. This might.
Yeah, I think that if I could, maybe we go through this first two slides fairly quickly. But if you go back to that first slide, I think a lot of the reporting in the press has left the impression, which I think is wholly inaccurate, that we haven't been doing a good job here the last 3 or 4 years. We all are aware of the fact that we're projecting a smaller loss than ultimately happened at year end. I think we mentioned at the last board meeting that we had some accounting deficiencies. The town accountant put his hand up and said things are going to change. But I'm a little concerned that there's been laser-like focus on that, not on the fact that if you look at the average loss over the last 15 years is $200,000, and we've had that in each of the last 4 years. In fact, if you look back over the last 15 years, there's only been 1 year where they had a number lower than what we've achieved in terms of a deficit. If you go to the next slide, Bishop. And then basically, I think we'll just go through these quickly. I think that the deficiency comparison we've seen there again.
That's really the issue. What you see here is we just took the last 8 years roughly, because anything prior to that starts to lose relevancy. What I did want to point out to you is that mountain peak there, that represents the revenue that was received for grant revenue that was received for the pond. For the duck pond.
So that's not operating revenue.
2000, that's not really operating revenue. But again, you see that, for the most part, sales have scaled upwards gradually.
It's in your,
Okay. And again, the same thing in terms of the expenses. On the expenses, I'm on the expense slide here. The only reason this slide has any relevancy is that big mountain range that's there. That's your labor cost over the last 8 years. Okay, so you can see that from 2003 to 2007, labor costs were skyrocketing. Beginning in 2008, the trend line has been consistently going down. Again, these are updated numbers from the draft audit, and you have a copy of the pertinent draft audit page in your packets. So, taking that one, that's really what we wanted to try and show there. What we can then do is go right to the budget.
Which basically, though, Bishop, says that the year end is going to end at $99,000? Is that what it says?
Yeah, that's where we are right now.
Okay.
We have not had our reconciliation meeting with the auditors. Right. There may be 1 or 2 last-minute adjustments, but this is substantially where you are going to be. The audit is substantially complete. All right, I just cannot tell you because it's in draft form. I can't say that that's the final number. But you...
well, Mr. Trenzi, what are the factors? I mean, I have to say I am a little disappointed that the numbers yo-yoing around the way it is. Can you help us understand why it's yo-yoed around the way it is and what we should expect as the actual number? Because we're close to a final audit.
Based on the conversations I've had with Mr. Brown, that this will be the number. There were some changes that were made in the town of Rye books that didn't affect the Rye Town Park, but you're looking at a $100,000 deficit. There's a $42,000 difference, of which I believe $30,000 of it is the interest calculation. I was calculating it differently because of the way we were doing the capital. That created a $30,000 difference. Other than that, you're talking about a $10,000 swing. On $1 million budget, that's a rounding error, so... like I said to you at the last meeting, projecting numbers like that in the future, we've talked to Paula and their budget committee, and, we're in the process right now of, we'll be doing the interest number on a monthly basis, and we'll be tightening up the cash receipts, comparing them to the sales journal. Everything that was suggested at the budget meetings will be up and running. The first quarter activity hasn't been put together yet because there's really not that much. There is no sales revenue. Only expenses, so I'll be in the next week or so, when April 30th comes along, I'll be doing the first 4 months, and Bishop has prepared a labor schedule already that I'll be adhering to with regards to the allocations, and we're off and running with the new system.
Wonderful.
And we're definitely going to be, I'm going to be treating every month as a review statement for the board, instead of just putting it all together. And
I think that'd be helpful. When you have that April 30th statement, could you email it to the board members?
Sure.
You have it. Terrific.
Okay.
Hold on.
Yeah, let me just, and Sam, thank you very much. I think a lot of the swings that you refer to, creates a lot of uncertainty. I think $99,000 is probably where we expected to be in the fall. You were quoting $65,000, give or take. It's not the $142,000. Sam, thank you for stepping up and clarifying those issues. And I think going forward, we have a process now that's going to take some of the uncertainty out of it. So,
it was definitely my fault. With regards to the interest calculation, I should have been a little bit more detailed with regards to how big dollars were coming in from debt service. When Jeff Brown, the auditor, came in, we had a discussion. He recalculated the number. I don't know, Bishop, did you get the schedule from Jeff?
No, we've asked the auditors to provide their work papers for the interest calculation, and we will forward them to the commissioners as soon as we get it.
Sam,
Sure.
it wasn't originally when we had, this is about the third or fourth budget we've seen, and everything changes. We just received this on Saturday night. So for many of us who haven't had a whole lot of time because of other commitments to digest this, but as I recall, the interest calculation was based on a 5%. I see
Correct.
that the number is 4% going forward.
Correct.
And I just want to understand why it's still 4% in this day and age, when, in fact, we go out for bonds in Rybrook and we have bands in the 2% range.
Well-
And I know that Supervisor Carvin has said maybe that there shouldn't be any financing whatsoever
Yeah.
by the town, but that's a different issue. So I want to understand, as I'm looking at the deficit, obviously, for last year, it's much better at $100,000 than 146. But there are numbers that keep changing, and I think that the process now will be better. There's more input. But I will say for the group, it makes me very uncomfortable every time I look at the budget and it's changing constantly. I think that there has to be some sort of,
Well, I think
a process going forward.
Yeah, I think if we could, I think what we should do is discuss the interest issue once and for all. I think that's more of a policy matter.
Yes, it is.
And so I think that, again, a lot of the way government works is inertia. The town had previously provided funding. There's absolutely no reason or obligation of the town to provide funding. There's no right reason why Right Town Park can't take out its own ban or...
I don't know if it's able to. I can't answer that question, whether or not...
I don't think the commission can take out a ban per se. A ban would be the easiest way to do it because it's such cheap money. Right?
Sure.
Village of Portchester just did 2 for 1%.
Right.
It's 1.5% money. The question is, are we going to do it at the cost of borrowing on a long term, or is it the opportunity of cost of the money that we have?
Look, I think there's
Your decision.
I think if Rye City or Rye Brook is the view that it's terrific finance, I'm perfectly happy for Rye Brook or Rye City to provide that finance. And obviously, we're on a $3.6
I
million...
don't think I'm able legally to provide the financing for the Right Town Park Commission.
No,
it's not.
I don't know what the legal... I don't think there's any legal obligation on the town to provide the financing, as far as I understand the documents. I think we've been doing that out of the goodness of our hearts. And I think that, but again, Rice City certainly is if they love that 4% interest rate, I'm perfectly happy for Rice City to step up to the plate. Sure.
For example, we're probably at $150,000, Bishop, right now. Cold cash, $200,000 between insurance bills, so on and so forth, and now the payroll starts kicking in. Once we hit June, we're at $400,000. Now, if we start calculating 4%, and it's not going to be $400,000 for the entire year. So let's assume it's an average of $400,000 at 4%. $16,000 is the number.
I do resent a little bit. I have to say, I don't mean to be. I think we had a very collegial working here on the board, but I do resent. Sort of the implication that the town is gouging Rye Town Park.
I don't think any...
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that's the purpose here. But I think the press coverage, quite frankly, has been very unfair, which is why we made our initial presentation. 15 years. The 15 years, the lowest deficit every year has been this one, except for 1 year. Somehow, miraculously, in 1995, they had a $95,000 deficit. So the press coverage, I think, has been, quite frankly, very unfair. The second thing is, the public, Mayor Feinstein, I'm not suggesting you for a second, are suggesting we're gouging Rye Town Park. But the public, may not understand the nature of this conversation. And so we have no obligation whatsoever to provide funding to Rye Town Park. And so I know we're all terribly concerned about finances. Now, we're on a $36.6 million budget, and, no one wants to hear that the town cried, but we collect $165 million in taxes. So we have to very carefully manage our cash flow, correct? So the cash flow throughout the year, that certain periods of the year, we're in a very difficult situation. So I think the income or interest rate we charge is just should be a policy decision.
Mr. Supervisor,
just to finish, sorry, just finish. And then the town can make a decision whether or not to provide the financing. We're all fiduciaries, and we're all financially literate. And the town, can make a determination if they want to provide financing at 2%. Quite frankly, I doubt the town's going to want to do that. And so I want to finish this point.
Sure.
I think we, need to make it a rate that is fair to the town, given its cash flow needs, et cetera, et cetera.
If I may just say, because I have raised the question as far as the interest, and you're in a difficult situation because you wear two hats. You sit on the Rye Town Parks Commission, and you're also the supervisor of the town of Rye. I certainly feel it's my fiduciary obligation as a member of the commission here, because I don't have an affiliation with the town other than the fact that the village of Rybrook is one of the villages within the town. But I feel that The press may have picked it up incorrectly or not understand the parameters of this, but by not asking the question, I would not be fulfilling my fiduciary obligations as a commissioner on the Right Town Parks Commission.
No, I think
I
that's...
just want to make sure, you know.
Mayor Feinstein, may I interject?
Well, hold on. Sorry, I think that's very fair, Mayor Feinstein. I didn't want to, I think these are all very fair questions. I think the Rye Citizens Finance Committee, I think it's not in response to your question, it just sort of jogged my memory in terms of trying to, look, the Rye Town Park employees have worked very hard to bring that deficit down, and we worked very hard to bring the deficit down. And all I see is how Rye Town finances are being horribly mismanaged, and we need to, again, no complaint to Mayor French that the city of Rye needs to manage the town of Rye and the finances. And again, I think that's just poor reporting. Again, no reflection on Mayor French. I'm really like the collegial and open atmosphere we've had at the board, and thank you for making that clarification. Sorry, I think...
Mr. Supervisor, just one quick point.
Yeah.
If we were to take out a $500,000 ban, we would have to get an official statement done, which would cost us $2,500. We would also have to get bond counsel, which would cost us another $2,000, and there would be fees. It would cost us $7,000 to $8,000 for a $500,000 ban. Now you've already got 2 points right there. 4% interest rate, taking out all the administrative costs. I think it's a wash, Mayor and Supervisor, based on my experience doing the bans, and I have a lot of experience with it.
Perfect. Sorry, Commissioner Sach.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'm not terribly interested in debating what the press coverage of this issue has been, but going forward, we are going to have to set what the policy is. It has been 5% for a long, long time, and the city of Rye has been paying its share of that 5% for a long, long time. I guess the way I'm looking at it as a fiduciary of the city of Rye is I don't want to pay more than I have to. And if it's a question of continuing to pay 5% or 4%, I guess I'd rather pass on that. So, if it comes down to an issue of the town of Rye contributing its portion and the city of Rye contributing its portion whenever cash is needed, unless we can agree on a much lower interest number of 1% or a little bit over 1%, I think that's probably the way to go. That's just my point of view. The city of Rye has 2 seats on this board of 6, and but we fund 50%.
The meeting was running late. He said he'd be very late.
All right. Well,
so that would be my point of view. So if we can work out a policy decision of paying 1% interest, I'd say thank you to the town of Rye for doing that service, and we'll pay you for it. If that's not going to be the policy, I would suggest that we just get rid of that interest charge altogether, and we each front our own fair share of the bill. That's how I look at it. Maybe other people see it differently.
yeah, I guess there's the legal obligation, right? Then there's the practical obligation. And so I think certainly, again, the town of Rye has been footing all this 100%. So clearly your suggestion that we take our fair share is a good one. And I'm perfectly happy for the city of Rye to, pony up the money. We can do that, against the monthly statements and that kind of thing. I think the other question is, ultimately, the city of Rye and the town of Rye, and Mayor Feinstein, you're absolutely right. I'm wearing 2 hats.
I know.
And we have 2 different boards. So the question is, I think, I'll have to go to my town board and see if they're prepared to provide financing at 1%. I can tell you, quite frankly, I don't think they are. Now, whether it's a loophole in the setting up of the Rye Town Park Commission, that wasn't anticipated, I don't know. Unfortunately, town attorney Noda's not here yet, and Mayor French told me he's going to be late. But I'm confident we'll be able to work something out. But at 1%, I'll have to take that to my board. And, quite frankly, my recommendation to the board is not to provide the financing at 1%. I just wouldn't do that.
And I wouldn't recommend to my colleagues on the city council that we accept 5 or 4%. So,
sure. No, I understand. Right. Yeah. So,
I think it's somewhat moot, though, because it only became apparent because of the $1.6 million project that I think that we looked at. That was an aberration. Generally, it's a $20,000 annual expense, the way we're operating. We can look at reviewing the policy, as you said, but I think we should move on.
Good. Perfect. Okay.
All right. You see the budget is up there. This is the
I think this is the third meeting can I, if I could, right now, the staff, and I think, Paul, is it correct that they've met with you since the last meeting?
Yes,
Okay, so you've had a chance to review the numbers as well?
yes, we've worked.
Okay. So the recommendation, let's just go straight to the bottom line. Has there been any significant changes in expenditure since the last meeting?
No, there hasn't.
I know we talked about trying to reduce those to the absolute minimum. And I know I know the Budget Committee, the Commissioner's going to look at that, and I think the Citizens Finance Committee. I guess Bishop and then Paul, please feel free to comment as well. Do we take all the expenditure, and then even the Right-Town staff, all the expenditures we thought we could take out of it? Do we still think there's more room to take expenditure out, or have we gotten those down as low as, I guess, Mr. Nowotnik, why don't you kick it off? Have we gotten those?
Okay, well, what I want to just call your attention to a couple of documents you have in your packet there. You have the 2011 budget assumptions, and we can kind of walk along with that. Rental income is...
No, I don't want, what I want to go, the bottom line is a deficit projection of 15,
basically, there's a loss of $15,000 on operating.
Right, perfect.
Okay, and...
A suggestion of a capital...
A suggestion of $50,000 of capital. There are 3 capital projects that, frankly, we think are critical in nature. We brought them up last year. One is drinking fountains. The 2 main drinking fountains in the what we would call most populated area need to be replaced. The North Beach showers need to be replaced. And our shower stalls in our main bathroom building are all rotting away. Literally, the posts are rotting off.
Okay, so basically, we're projecting a $15,000 operating loss and capital expenditures of about, set aside of capital expenditures of about $50,000. So the question, that's the headline number. Now, the first question I have is, Bishop, are you confident you've taken all the expense out of the budget that you can, as far as you see it?
I am confident that we have. I mean, we do have a project that we are looking at in terms of the landscaping and the possibility of outsourcing the landscaping, and there may be an opportunity to save some money at Right-Town Park as well, but that is not in this plan.
Okay, so, other than the landscaping RFP, are you confident then that we've worked as hard as we can to take expenditures out of the budget?
I've taken 5 shots at it.
Okay, good.
I'm pretty much...
No, and Mr. Joffrey, Mr. Lawyer, are you guys done everything you can to take the expenditures out of the budget as far as you see? Yes. Okay. Now, just let me get Paul and then give it to Paul. How about you? Did you see any other areas for potential saving that maybe the...
I'll be honest with you, we haven't focused as much on the operational side of really reviewing their staffing levels. And I understand that these are consistent with prior years that you've tried to bring the staffing levels down, and then what we've done is we've tried to adjust it for weather. And I think that we've reviewed with staff the policy that they have for bad weather days, because I think that that's pretty critical in an operation like this, to make sure that you can reduce what staffing you can when you're not running it at full tilt at the park on a bad weather day.
Perfect. Which wouldn't necessarily be reflected in these numbers, I guess.
Well, go
Sorry.
ahead.
If you look at the labor budget sheet that outlines position by position and month by month, you'll see on the far right we did take a stab at trying to do a weather discount. And the numbers that you see reflected here are the 96% weather discount. And the reason it's 96% is there are a number of people that are either on fixed compensation or their positions are not necessarily weather-related, and as a result, it's not a straight-line calculation, if you will. But that's how we got to the $497,000 labor number.
So 100% of labor is $511,772, and if you had a 96%, not a full weather, then you'd be at $497,000. Is that correct?
Right.
And look, again, these are assumptions and...
Yeah, there are assumptions, and we tried to do the same thing on the revenue side, where we said if we have so many bad days, and take down the revenue that way. So just the methodology was
Well,
corresponding.
this is the interesting thing, and Paula, maybe you can help me on the nature of this budget, and of course, Mayor French has been in the Budget Committee. Now, for me, my focus intentionally is on expenditures, because that's what we control. Once we set the rates for the entrance into the park, for the fees and so forth and so on, we then, it seems to me, have lost all control of revenues. Is that a fair statement?
I think that's fair.
So while we should sensitize the projections, I think as you're doing, as one should, for whether, my real focus is, can we run the park, more efficiently? It sounds like we're about a $500,000 labor expenditure at the park, give or take. And so, we're all running budgets in our municipalities. Those are more straightforward, everyday activities that are less weather dependent. So I just wanted to make that clear, because it seems to me the nature of the budgeting for this park is much closer to a business enterprise than it is municipal budgeting, I guess. Mayor French, I think you've been trying to...
Yeah. One of the things that I see is that the lifeguards and the cashiers are staying flat year over year compared to the 2010 and 2011 budgets. And every other category, for the most part, seems to have been dropped, and I think that was based on our conversation of having a postseason start September, not having a full season. And why wouldn't we see changes in the lifeguards and cashiers if we were going to do that?
Well, I think on the cashier side of the equation, I think you also had, and remember, we're keeping some people on fireworks nights until 9 o'clock. We're staffing a little bit differently, and in effect, that has not changed since 2010. Lifeguards, to be frank, it's hard for us because the lifeguard captain, right now we budgeted the lifeguards more or less as we did last year. There may be 1 or 2 position reductions as a result of the cutback to 5 o'clock, and as a result he may be able to jigger his staff a little bit, but we could not confirm that with him. He's a teaching professor up at Pace University, and right now I don't have access to him, but perhaps there's an opportunity there.
Just the month in September alone, if we didn't have full operating beach and cashiers.
We've already, by the way, these plans already reflect the fact that we did not have a postseason and we did not have a preseason in terms of beach operations. All right, this is from a lifeguard standpoint, this is a Memorial Day weekend to Labor Day weekend budget for the lifeguards. That's what this is.
I guess what I'm getting at is, when I looked at the payroll month by month, last year in September and October, we paid over $100,000 in salaries. Now, for a postseason, that's just, sorry, the mics are sensitive. For postseason, it just seems like a lot of staff for when we're not going to be generating revenue. So that's why we're going to cut it back, but I don't see that kind of impact in here.
Well, I'm finding it difficult not to disagree, but if you look at the bottom line on the labor cost, you will see January through December forecast for 2011. What you're going to see there is, for example, the first 3 months, we're talking about a little over $9,000 in allocated costs. Those are my full-time Rye-Town employees that did the snow removal, that did the trash removal, that did the leaf removal, et cetera. Those are the people that are allocated. A portion of their salaries are allocated. The same thing if you look at the back end, you're looking at roughly about $20,000 in what amount to allocated costs. So we've cut that dramatically, and if you can go and you can look department by department there to see what we're spending both preseason and postseason. So we've made as tightly a forecast as we possibly could. The only situation that we did not do is we did not physically cut back the number of lifeguard positions, which may translate into a couple of $1,000s. I just, at this particular point, I could not do that without Mark Casada's backing.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Please, yes, please.
Bishop, I kind of made the same types of observations that Mayor French made, which is I was looking at the different categories of worker. And I looked at the foremen, the groundsmen, the security guards, the lifeguards, the cashiers, the attendants. And I see that for most of those categories, the idea is for 2011 to reduce the amount of money we have to expend on those categories of worker by going to what it's called passive park scheduling.
Right.
And, my general understanding of that is, I guess it speaks for itself, which is you're going to have less people working at less times during the year. And the idea is you don't have to expend